show that tried to get an appointment with Donald Trump to do an hour-long rant, but he wasn't taking our calls. Hopefully, everybody had a good week. We're back here with me, Ducky, and it's our favorite friend, Mark. How are you this evening, Mark?
Welcome back, everybody. Actually, no, just welcome back me. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
I'm doing, I think you asked how I was doing. I am doing great. Thanks for asking.
It is the courteous thing to do as the host. So, before we get started, as always, we have to get all the particulars out of the way. Instagram, Twitter, @T1PEp41. Email podthat@gmail.com. You can also go to the show page and find links to everything, and it shows.pippa.io/that1podcast. And Mark, we put it in the links before, but do me a favor and let everybody know where they can find your I can't think of words, your stuff.
My stuff. So, the stuff that I'm sharing with the world, which is just a little bit because I'm super security conscious, is twitch.tv/tycoonatic. That's spelled TYCOONATIC. Because I am a tycoonatic. I am as I said before, I am a dad who plays video games and occasionally streams them on that channel. Not too terribly often, no schedule, nothing like that. And I play just kind of, my streams are pretty chill. I like to call them chill streams. Actually, other people call them chill streams, so I can't take credit for that. But I play a lot of tycoon games, management games, stuff like that. The kind of stuff that some people don't like to play, but they're okay watching. And whatever the heck else I feel like playing.
Mm-hmm. And those people calling it chill stream would be people like me, because I enjoy watching it thoroughly. So, definitely check it out. And hopefully you can get some other level of enjoyment out of it. So, first thing first, we're going to just get right into it here. One of the things that is happening a lot nowadays is companies just trying to essentially be too big to fail, right? Like, there's this whole concept of buying other companies, whether or not you were even in that industry, just to sort of bolster your catalog of sort. And even it was I find it interesting because there was a point in time where the government basically poo-pooed those sort of things, right? But now you have companies buying up other companies left and right. And one of the more recent ones was the announcement of AT&T buying Time Warner. Not Time Warner Cable, but Time Warner, the media group. And on its face, it doesn't seem like a big deal, especially in comparison to what you have NBC Universal type stuff going on, right? So NBC owns Universal. They own a stake in Hulu, and you can clearly start to see that, hey, they want to play a certain role when it comes to the content provider industry. But, the purchase by AT&T of Time Warner, you didn't really know why they did it. It just seemed like they just wanted to buy it. Well, it's looking like there may be another reason. Apparently, they have plans to launch their own streaming service that they want to rival Netflix. Yeah, I know it's easier said than done, but when you when you really think about it, they could pull a Disney with this. Now, Time Warner is the Time magazine group, but also Warner Brothers. And if they want to use the Warner Brothers Studios catalog, you got everything from Harry Potter to DC. But what also is included with this, and this is a big one, HBO.
Right. And it's a little interesting because there's a lot of media companies buying each other out, but I think some of the confusion from this one was AT&T is more of a communications company traditionally, right? And then buying out Time Warner like this was a little bit of a different kind of conglomeration, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and that's why a lot of people thought that the FCC wouldn't go for something like this. But again, once you have something like we have with Comcast, who, I mean, oh yeah, and Comcast owns NBC Universal. But once we have something like that, it's impossible to say no to AT&T, right? Because normally you
Right.
would want those two entities to be separate because you don't want them to um, use leverage over the public and to basically force them into pricing them out of a reasonable service. But again, it's once that floodgate was opened, we were going up shit's creek at that point.
Yeah, plus the line between these types of companies is completely blurred at this point. I do I back up a little bit there and say AT&T communication company, but AT&T also has been, while it hasn't really been content creation, it's been content delivery for a long time. I mean, it's one of the biggest ISP, internet service providers, and of course cell phones. I mean, what gives cell phone companies the most money? People watching their videos and keeping that streaming going. Get those minutes, get those chargeable minutes in there.
Exactly. They may act like they don't want you to go over your data caps or whatever, which by the way is bullshit. The fact that you have data caps in this day and age, but yeah, they want you to go over your data caps because that's how they make the money, right? Like they don't like the reason they could sell services at the pricing they do, and people will even argue this it still isn't cheap, but they'll argue, oh yeah, we're losing money on this, but they're planning on you fucking up on your data limits, so they can make that money back. So especially now that net neutrality isn't a thing, AT&T buying Time Warner actually made a lot of sense. It's something that they can loop in to their pricing and offer as an exclusive deal, and maybe if you watch, whatever AT&T streaming service name here, whatever they come up with, then it doesn't count against your data. So then maybe people go to AT&T for, internet service, even though they wouldn't be able to watch it because their internet is shit. But that's how that sort of thing works. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But apparently, this time next year, fourth quarter, 2019, there should be something in the works that will be presented to everybody.
Yeah, and I kind of chuckled a little bit earlier about, when you talk about competitor to Netflix. And I don't mean that to mean like, that's a silly idea. That's absolutely not a silly idea. I mean, the thing that brings in the viewers is the content. And if AT&T has the right content, Disney has the right content, Netflix has the right content, Amazon has the right content, and so on and so forth, because we just keep hearing about new ones every month or two, it seems like. Whoever has the content, rules the airwaves. This really is the new generation's network battles, right? Mm-hmm. It's really this generation's version of ABC versus NBC versus CBS, and of course later Fox, but that wasn't until like the 80s.
Yeah.
But will they compete with Netflix? Sure, they'll compete with them, but what will people want to watch? Also, I feel like there's going to be some diminishing returns eventually if every single one of these services costs, a monthly fee. There's only, people are going to have to pick and choose. And I think that's where the competition really comes in. It's like, it's not a matter of will people watch AT&T over Netflix. It's will people subscribe to AT&T and not have Netflix.
Yeah. Well, and that's really where the rubber meets the road for this sort of thing, right? It's so having worked in the cable industry before, people often discuss with me the idea of how, cable providers are ripping people off because they make you sell these channels that they don't want to watch. And I always had to tell people, okay, here's the thing. That's not up to the cable providers. It's up to the content creators. If you went to Disney and you said, "Hey, I only want to purchase the Disney Channel," they would come to you, laugh in your face, and said, "No, you're gonna have to buy Disney, Disney XD, Disney Family Channel. You're gonna have to buy fucking and stuff that isn't even Disney." So that's why they bought ABC. So now you need to make sure you have ABC, which you're gonna have. But what about shit like fucking why can't I think of names of things? ESPN. Oh, guess what? Now if you want to watch sport, you got to count that in. And there's like 5 ESPN channels. And all because you just wanted the Disney Channel. And you may not even be affiliated with all that stuff.
I mean, there have been people fighting for, what they basically refer to as a la carte cable, for a long time. Back in the day, I used to argue, man, if I had if I could, I would only subscribe to this channel, that channel, this channel, that channel. And that's never happened. No. And the first time it even got close to happening, it was shut down by lawsuits and and all these fights by things. The closest you can get are, these streaming boxes like the PlayStation service and Sling and stuff like that, which will, and even the ones that just stream over the web, which will give you, what they call a la carte, but it's still packages of channels. Exactly. It's still like 5 ABC channels and 5 NBC channels or whatever. So,
and that's the problem with this. When it was the content provider versus the content creator, they would fight to make sure that you got the best price that you could get. Now, it may not be what you think is the best price, but it still was better than what the content creator wanted to be. Prime example, when I worked at Time Warner Cable, we would sell HBO for $14.99, which sounds like a lot for one channel. The thing was, what HBO was charging Time Warner Cable was the equivalent of each subscription being $19.99. So the company lost money with each HBO subscription that they sold. But at the same time, they knew people weren't going to pay $20 for it. So they would fight tooth and nail with HBO to get the price as low as they could, and then they just bite the bullet on losing the difference. And that's why you often see, premium channels packaged in with like various levels of subscription, because they go, look, we need to make money off of you in this way, so we can pay off the HBO in another way, or whatever it is. But that's the problem, is now the content provider is a content creator. They have no reason to try to sell you something as cheap as possible anymore.
Well, it's even worse now. Oh, well, I shouldn't say worse. It's even more convoluted now because, these companies aren't just selling you TV content anymore. They're selling you security systems for your house, and they're selling you internet service. I call up my internet service provider and I say, I want internet. And they say, well, the internet's going to cost you $75, but it's only $70 if you get it with 300 channels of cable and a home security system. And I say, I don't need 300 channels of cable and a security system, but it's $5 cheaper.
Mm-hmm. I've seen so many people sign up for home phone just to get cheaper internet. It's insane. But that's the thing.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious.
But that's how it's going to be. That's how it's going to be when it comes to your channels and it comes to your internet. Because think about it from an AT&T perspective. Okay, yeah, I could charge you $80 for internet, which I don't know if that's the price now, but just hear me out. I could charge you $80 for internet. But I also need to make money on the other services that you don't want. So what I'll do is I'll loop in TV for $50 total, or no, we'll say $60, right? $60 total, and you're saving $20. You're thinking, oh man, I really worked them over. But no, The TV subscription is how they make money off of ads. So whether you watch TV or not, that is the content creators don't know that. So they'll go to them and be like, look, I have 900 people signed up for, this service. Pay me as though all of them are watching it, even though we all know everybody isn't watching every single channel every single day at every single moment. But because what they generally would do is they'll take into some calculation the percentage of your customers that would actually be watching it, and then they figure things out monetarily based off of that data. But now they could just say, oh, well, we have to charge you this for this AT&T streaming service, and you really don't have any say in it, and there's no one to advocate to lower it. Not that they would, even if it were separate, but that's where the waters get murky with this sort of thing. Is, I like to have competition, and I do think Netflix needs a competition, because competition pretty much forces people to innovate. Hulu was shit. It had been shit. It had always been shit. When it first came out, it was not worth paying any amount of money for.
Oh, I used to refer to Hulu as the Family Guy streaming station.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, they had some stuff I wanted to watch, but I would rather not watch it because, one, you had to watch ads. Two, it usually was kind of janky of a system to use. And three, you just were like, I'll wait till it comes on Netflix. Because eventually it would. But...
yeah. But we've gotten to the point now where, see, I used to say that about movies. I would be like, I wouldn't worry about not going to the movies because my reaction would be, oh, well, I'll just get it I'll just watch it on Netflix when it comes out. Mm-hmm. And that worked fine when Netflix was a DVD or DVD and Blu-ray service. Mm-hmm. But now Netflix barely gets any new movies, if at all.
Well, part of that comes because there are services like this. Now that the content creators are becoming content providers, they have no obligation to put it on Netflix. Disney's a very good example. Disney had it where every release was going on Netflix because they wanted people to be watching that content and they wanted to make money off of it because they knew people didn't want to have physical media anymore. But
yeah.
Black Panther is the last Disney movie that's going to be on Netflix. The last new release, I should say, that's going to be on Netflix, because once Disney does their own streaming service, guess what? You're going to have to go there. And that's where the problem comes in for Netflix. And this is why Netflix made such a big push to create their own content, because they saw the writing on the wall. They're going, holy shit. Everybody's going to want to turn into their own streaming service because we're so popular. They're going to think that they can do it. Whether they do it better, worse, or equally as well isn't the reason, isn't the issue. The real issue is now there isn't going to be that content on our service. So now we have to make things appealing for you to want to come see this because Netflix was going to have something you wanted to see anyway. Because before it was just, oh, well, I want to see this movie on Netflix, but they also got that Netflix show, so I'll watch that too. But they don't want that. They wanted to be like, I want to see that Netflix show. Oh, that movie's on here as well.
Yep.
And that's the thing is, and it goes right back to what you stated earlier, which is, it's all going to come to a head because the companies are getting too greedy. They all want to get the whole pot for themselves, which you're a business. I understand that. But the problem is, people's wallets are but so big. They're not going to, I guarantee you that Disney service, matter of fact, let me see if they have pricing out. I doubt it, but I want to see.
I mean, Disney basically has the stranglehold on movies right now as far as the most popular stuff. So I have no doubts that Disney's going to be very successful with their service. And of course, like you said, Warner Brothers has has the rights and ownership of a lot of other properties that a lot of people like to see. I mean, you brought up Harry Potter as an example, and DC Comics. I mean, the DC movies, and properties have not really been nearly as successful as the Marvel, but they still make a lot of money. A lot of people still go see them, and people can generally trust that they can trust that eventually they will probably see a good they'll see good DC properties mixed in there, right? So like, tons of people loved Wonder Woman. I liked Wonder Woman. It was really good. It was the best DC movie of the current generation, I thought. Aquaman's coming out. It remains to be seen if that's good, but the trailers look really neat. So, we'll see what happens. But beside the point, it's it's an interesting time to be in, to kind of be a content viewer, but there's gonna be a line where it just gets a little bit too much. I'm very curious to see what happens in the next couple of years when we have there's just so many content providers. The thing that I don't look forward to is the really good smaller content providers that have great quality stuff but just can't compete.
Yeah. So I was trying to see if I can find pricing on the on what Disney streaming service is, but it's still so far out that it doesn't look like that's been announced yet. But that's what I wanted to. The point I was trying to get to was, even if, let's say, so right now for Netflix, if you want to watch their content with 4K capabilities, you have to pay we'll just say $14. If you want HBO's streaming service, I think that's $14.99. If you want to watch Amazon Prime Video, which to be fair, I will say this, the Amazon Prime Video is actually pretty decent. If their search parameters wasn't so trash, it probably would be much, much better. But with that said, it still is pretty entertaining, and they actually have a surprisingly large amount of content. It's kind of impressive. But if you want to have Amazon Prime Video, you can pay the $9.90 or the $99 a year for the Prime service.
It's like $120 now.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're right. It is $120 now. Yeah. There was pricing for just the. I think they had it where you can. No, I'm thinking they do the opposite. So if you want Amazon Prime Video, I think you have to have Amazon Prime, although they are offering Amazon Prime without the Amazon Prime Video service, and you can get that cheaper.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
But this is all adding up to be essentially cable, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I've been saying for years. Everybody's been so excited about streaming and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but this is just cable with logins. And this is and that's the part that frustrates me, because it'd be glorious if there was this one medium where you can go online, sign up for whatever channels you wanted, and you just got to watch that content. But with the way that media is being created nowadays, stuff is being made for not on channels, right? So
yeah.
If you want to have let's name any fucking Amazon original or Netflix original. That's not a channel. So, it's a content provider that happened to make content. So there's weird amalgamation, and there are even, and I don't know if it's still up. If it is, I'll post it so you guys can use it yourself. But I came across this website a while ago where essentially it would ask you what content you were interested in watching, and it would do it based on shows, on genre, that sort of thing. And basically it would tell you what services you can use versus to get all that content, and it would tell you if you would save money versus cable in your area. And I remember doing this. a while back, and I wouldn't save any money versus using
Yeah.
the internet services alone.
These are tools. I think I remember the site you're talking about, and it's basically the type of tool, because the whole thing with cord cutting, basically people trying to get away from, the stranglehold of cable and so on and so forth. It was basically a tool to see like how viable is that for you in particular. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that, what it comes down to is the cord cutters are the folks who want to get away from cable. And so instead of cable to view the content that they want, they get set-top boxes or whatever. Yeah. Or some of them just use antennas. But in general, you're talking about the difference between cable and set-top boxes. But you get a set-top box, and on that set-top box in a year, you've got the Disney streaming service and the Warner Brothers streaming, or the AT&T streaming service, mm-hmm. and Netflix and Hulu. And suddenly, you are paying cable rates again.
And you're having, like, I live with one other person. This other person is not as technically savvy as I am. She's learned to adapt. When we first started dating, it was not a working relationship in terms of how my technology interacted with her. But she's gotten to a point where she's very competent when it comes to technology. And there are some times that a hiccup may occur. She doesn't know what to do to get something going. But more often than not, she holds her own. And when we first moved out to California, and I'm not getting free cable like I was when I was working at Time Warner, which, don't get me wrong, was a fucking amazing. It was the best. Every channel you wanted, and free internet. I literally paid $4 a month because I had extra cable boxes just because I could. It was amazing. Much less than what I pay now. So we'll just put it that way. But the discussion was had, okay, do we actually want to sign up for cable, or do we want to just do streaming? She's like, oh, I don't need cable. I don't want cable. I can go without cable. And I was like, okay, well, here's the other aspect you have to consider. How are you going to be watching that online content? You could, if we stream it, that means you're going to have to work with apps. If you don't have a compatible TV, that means you're going to have to get an additional hardware. If you don't, or you could like hook up a computer, but then you gotta handle a mouse and keyboard. And there's always like a contingency that you have to take into consideration with all these different things. And it's just like, it's not as simple as just, oh, I'm done with cable and I'll just use X service.
I mean, in general, it never is. It depends on your situation, but I didn't have cable throughout most of my adulthood until I had a toddler who wanted to watch, kids' TV. Yeah. And, so now I have it. And it came as part of that package. Now, for better or worse, I mean, I could keep him occupied on YouTube and stuff like that. But man,
no, I don't trust that shit.
that's way worse content.
So, for some of you who may or may not be familiar, there has been, we'll just say, interesting fallout for the YouTube Kids genre, because apparently people were just, so YouTube, the way YouTube works is, if you have ads, or if you enable ads for your videos and you get a lot of views, you get paid out for those views because of the ads. Well, there are a lot of people who were putting adult content, like shit that, like, even as a grown-ass man, I'm like, holy shit, this is too adult for me, on the kids platform. Because with the way the kids platform works, you just pick a genre and you just let it play. It's supposed to be so that you can set it and forget it, right? Because as someone, if you've ever taken care of a kid, having to start the next video would just be so monotonous that you're just like, I want to kill myself. But the thing was, some of those videos were real fucked up. Like, there was one where it was supposed, I heard about where it was supposed to be like the Smurfs, and like the video was talking about all the other Smurfs trying to fuck Smurfette. Which, okay, that's funny, but do I want my 6-year-old niece watching that video? Probs not.
No. Well, I mean, besides the rest of YouTube, children's channel is kind of a wasteland of garbage. But anyway, we're getting off topic. So,
of course. But going back to this, it's just interesting because you got content providers turning into content creators, and like even I just literally read a story just now. Iron Fist is being canceled on Netflix, which.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, and there are people who definitely have opinions on Iron Fist, whether it was good, bad, or otherwise. But the thing is, based off of one of the tweets I saw that one of the executives said, it seems like it's being canceled on Netflix, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be made anymore. They're just going to bring it to the Disney platform once that comes out.
Well, those are Marvel properties, so
exactly.
Yeah.
They own so much Disney, and we just let it happen. There wasn't much you could do because I mean, come on, but still,
yeah.
But yeah, it's just this is the way that it's going to work. And while some people are very excited for it, I am quite the contrary. I am worried because I honestly, internet prices are not going down, and when the TV provider, cable providers aren't making money on it, they're gonna make their money back by upping the price on the internet. Whether you get more for your money or not is not their concern. But that's my concern, is that it's gonna get to a point where you got internet, but are you gonna be able to afford to pay for the streaming services after everything's said and done? Is gonna be a whole nother story. So.
Yep, absolutely.
But speaking of Marvel and DC.
Speaking of DC streaming.
Exactly. So a while back, we discussed on the show, not you, Mark, but the show in general, James Gunn leaving, or not leaving, basically being fired.
Yeah, being fired.
From the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And so there was this big fallout about should Disney bring him back or not, because basically he was fired over some old tweets, and people were debating if they were offensive enough. And my argument was, Disney, you fucking knew that he did this, because, or at least you should have known, because these tweets were before he signed any contract with Disney, and it wasn't like hidden tweets. These are public tweets, right? And they were old, but still.
I mean, there's a line there between people saying things at different periods of time, and people saying things that are jokes or sarcastic or not, or people saying things that are dangerous. This was a relatively easy line to read, especially considering that Gunn had already come out and basically admitted to these and talked about them beforehand and apologized for them before Disney even said anything.
Exactly.
But what did James Gunn do?
Well, it's interesting you asked that. I don't even know if it's James Gunn that did it, but regardless, it looks like he is going to be signed to direct the next DC movie. Let me rephrase that. It looks like he's set to direct the next Suicide Squad movie for DC.
Yep. So he's moving from Marvel to DC. He was picked up by Warner Brothers after Disney Candom, and he is going to write and direct the next. It's a little confusing. They say the next Suicide Squad movie, but I'm reading different things on, like, is it a sequel? Is it a reboot?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of fast to do a reboot, but the first movie was not particularly well received or successful. As far as I know, I did not see it based on word of mouth.
The verbiage I saw said it isn't exactly a sequel, so it's probably going to be a sequel in that they probably aren't going to do. Hopefully, they aren't going to do a setup explaining origin stories unless they're going to go deeper into those characters and to develop them. But it probably isn't going to be so linear that it's going to pick up exactly where the last movie left off, which may not be.
Yeah, and when it comes to comic book stories, I am very much a fan, more so a fan of the the stories that don't take themselves quite as seriously. I mean, they may have a serious kind of story and stuff like that, but the characters are, a little bit more lighthearted and just more fun. I've never liked, I mean, I was collecting comics in the 90s and quit because everything was doom, dark, death, doom, Batman, And so, like when comic book series like the I Can't Believe It's Not Justice League and stuff came out, those were a massive breath of fresh air. And Guardians of the Galaxy is just a perfect example of that. And to a similar extent, Thor Ragnarok. The directors at Marvel hired to work on these films that have these kind of more lighthearted characters, at least. Have just done a spectacular job at just creating these just fun, feel good, funny, but still very superhero-y films. Yeah. The impression that I get is that Suicide Squad is kind of like that on the DC side. And I think like Suicide Squad, Doom Patrol, a couple of these other, DC has its own versions of this. Yeah. And the biggest, the big qualm that I've had with the DC movies is that they've taken characters that traditionally have been more kind of rah, colorful, Batman being the exception, but, red, white, and blue, Superman, Truth, Justice, the American Way, and all this kind of stuff. And they've just like tried to make make them doom, dark, death, doom, and that doesn't work these days. You've got to mix it up. I mean, even Avengers, which was not a comedy movie, has lighthearted and funny moments and great lines that don't feel out of place. And getting back to the point, James Gunn created Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, great examples of this. And if the Suicide Squad, if he can really kind of write that into Suicide Squad, I think that would make for a much more successful use of that property.
Yeah. And I think it's nothing, it can't be anything but a boon as far as DC is concerned, because frankly speaking, they've tried to get directors involved and they've sort of made, a few poor decisions on that front. But if James Gunn's catalog is enough to speak for his capabilities, I think if you are a DC fan, you should feel encouraged that you're going to get someone who not only knows how to write something that's actually entertaining, but he also knows how to write something that, generally speaking, respects the medium in which it's related to. I will say this: there are a few issues I had with Guardians of the Galaxy movies, having read the comics myself, but at the same time too, you do have to allow a director some semblance of creativity when it comes to telling a story, because otherwise they can just put fucking comic panels and voiceovers with them,
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as it is, has always basically held to this. These are the characters that, familiar characters, familiar kind of situations, but completely different stories. So, I mean, you look at the example of like the Civil War movie versus the Civil War comic series. Yeah. So, I actually read the Guardians of the Galaxy comics after seeing the movie. I enjoyed both of them, but it's
definitely different.
I don't know. They are different, but I mean, to me, it's not that much different than the 75, 80, 90-year-old tradition of movies being quite a bit different from their source material. Yeah. So, in regards to this one, I don't really have any interest or background with Suicide Squad as a thing, but I'm curious on this one. I'll keep an eye on it just because I've liked what James Gunn has done in the last few years.
Look, at the very least, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I don't care about the DCU at all. I think all the movies have been trash. And I think, and yes, I said all of them. Yeah, there might be one or two gems, and The Dark Knight is not one of them. Yeah, I said it. But with that, I think just getting James Gunn involved it's going to get way more people to even attempt to watch your movie who may have never even saw the first one versus, oh, they're going to come back because they enjoyed the first one so much. It's going to be, they're probably going to make more money than they know what to do with because James Gunn is involved. So, I wish them both good luck and really just make good shit, you know? I mean, and it'll take care of itself as far as that's concerned.
If you had asked me 10, 20 years ago if they should like reboot films, more than once every 50 years, I would have laughed. But they've been doing it so much lately. I mean, how many Spider-Man reboots have we had? They've been doing it so much lately that having them, redo Suicide Squad a couple years after the first one, I don't know. It's just right over my head. I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because I mean, I think the one thing that has been true in the industry is people don't really care what you do as long as it's good, right?
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, I'll even go as far as I'll go a different route. So the girl with the dragon tattoo. I don't know if did you see that movie?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, there's like 3 of them. There's 3. It's a book series, and each movie is based off of one of the books. Each movie has had a different actress every time playing the main character. The thing is, though, no one says anything about that, right? But no one says anything about it because each movie is so good. Like, if it were bad, that's when people would panic. Like, oh my God, how could you not use this actress because she is so good? Yada, yada, yada. And back in the day, and like, if you think back on it, like, if you had changed actors or actresses from a role that they did particularly well in, and it isn't as though those movies didn't make money. They all made really good money, and that's why they keep making them. But you change your actor. People be like, "What's wrong with you?" 20 years ago, but now, hey, just give me good content. I don't care who's in it. I don't care as long as it's good content. I'll eat it up, and I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's harkening back to traditional drama, right? It's like it's not an actor, it's a character, right? And lots of people can play that character. They didn't have the same guy from 1600 to 1700 playing Hamlet or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing here. There are also differences between how iconic a actor is in a role. But the thing is, but I mean, the thing is, like, look at Batman. How many actors have played Batman?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So, and again, if you do it well, people will accept it. So that's the only thing I do.
And
just don't fuck up.
and if you don't do it well, and another person does it well, and then somebody else does it kind of well, then you'll have the internet making top 10 lists of who's the best to worst Batman.
Oh yeah. You just can't be worse than George Clooney. Okay, I almost started to go into who's your worst, but no, I'm not gonna even start. So, and also, I don't blame George Clooney for how bad he was in it. There is a background to it, but I won't get into that.
Best Batman is Kevin Conroy.
Debatable. All right, we're moving on. So, of that same vein, we're going to go back to Marvel and talk about Black Panther 2. And as of now, it's official. Ryan Coogler is coming back to not only write, but also direct the sequel, Black Panther 2. Obviously, is probably
speaking of awesome directors, and in this case, an awesome movie.
Mm-hmm. So it isn't going to be coming out anytime soon, which is perfectly fine with me because we have a lot going on in the MCU as a whole, and I think we can wait for another Black Panther 2. But it looks like they won't even begin filming until late 2019, early 2020, because Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan are going to be doing another movie, which I think they're basically Siamese twins at this point. Like, they're connected at the hip, and they're not allowed to like be in a movie without each other. So, and that's fine by me because they keep making good movies. I mean, look at Creed. So, but did Ryan Coogler direct Creed? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, they just have this tether that they just can't figure out how to unhook on either end. It's pretty cool.
Hey, don't give them the key, because they're gonna keep making shit I like. I want it.
Well, it's gonna take. I mean, it's gonna take a bit. They still have to get through. Everything has to get through the through Avengers 4 at this point, because I mean, T'Challa and like half the other people are just, they're all gone right now. So
well, T'Challa's still alive, right?
No, he got ashed, and
no, I thought no, he didn't get ashed. I thought it was his guard.
No, he got ashed because I remember that the guardswoman.
Oh, that's right.
Basically freaked out, and I was sitting there watching the movie, saying, "Oh man, what's Wakanda gonna do?"
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That well, I think Black Panther will be okay then.
Oh yeah.
Not like we were kind of concerned about him coming back one way or another anyway, but still.
Spoiler alert, superheroes never die permanently.
Not unless they need to. So but yeah. So now we're going to get out of the movieverse and we're going to go to the Technoverse. Because this week was a very, very big week for Google.
The Googlies.
They had their annual, well, I guess now it's called the Pixel event. Before it used to be called the Nexus event, and basically they just did a hardware dump and just threw it at us. And we're not gonna have time or the desire to really talk about everything. I'm gonna quickly go over the highlights, and then we can discuss what actually got us excited about it. So there's a new smart home hub that integrates with Google Home. There's a new Chromecast for anybody who cares about that. Just, if you do, cool. If not, I get it. There's also a new tablet, the Slate. And on top of that, of course, you got your new Pixel phones. So, I didn't want to go into either one of them because I wanted to sort of set the stage. Mark, what was your favorite announcement or the thing you're the most interested in, I should say, from the Pixel event itself?
I'm probably not going to actively pursue any of these devices, although the thing I found most interesting was the Home Hub. Mm-hmm. But I have opinions, just kind of short opinions on everything there. So, number one, the new Pixel phone. Look, let's just face it. In my not so humble opinion, Google just straight up makes the Pixels just straight up are the best Android phones on the market.
Yeah,
I mean, they just are. And you can argue your iPhones versus your Androids versus whatever. I don't have I don't have a Pixel because I have T-Mobile and T-Mobile doesn't carry it, but I've seen other people's phones, and it is just a fantastic device. And the new one looks like it's going to be no slouch. It has better Google Assistant, which is pretty interesting. And like a dedicated button for it, and just altogether the screen looks great. The camera looks amazing. Mm-hmm. And it just looks like a slick device. And they have... did they have a regular and an XL kind of large version before? Or is this the first time?
Yeah. So the big sort of selling point for Google is they differ themselves from Apple in that their flagship phones come in two sizes, but with the same capability no matter the size. So they right. And this was one, and I was actually kind of confused because they were just talking about the phone in general, and I forgot about that. But yeah, even during the press conference, they just talked about the phone itself, but they didn't talk about the size or anything like that. They just like, nope, this is what the phone does. And then later on, you're like, wait, yeah, there's an XL too. So yeah, there are two different sizes.
Now the new Google Pixel 3 does have the now ubiquitous notch, although it is
only on the XL.
Okay, only on the XL. Although I am from some videos I watched, it does let you kind of black it out, like hide it by essentially blacking out, bar blacking the top of the phone, or like changing it to different colors and stuff like that. I'm not as as down on the notch as a thing as I used to be, because I understand why it exists. I was mostly down on it because it really looked like, Apple created something and then everybody else was jumping on the boat. And my argument was like, guys, innovate, don't copy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Apple has done, or not. That's what Apple has done a lot. And we look to the rest of the industry to innovate, and it's just this doesn't look like it. But that's beside the point. As far as everything else goes, the tablet is I don't know what to think about the tablet. It is it is kind of needed because, like, there isn't a really good. Well, there arguably isn't a really good Android tablet on the market.
I'd agree with that.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've used, like, the $400 what is it called, the Acer tabs or whatever they are, and even the high end ones just don't have the just kind of the smooth operation, the good feel that either an Android phone or an iPad have. That's why iPad has ruled the roost. Now, I did see some videos of the Pixel Slate, is what this thing is called. And I did see some videos that didn't really impress me, but I think those videos were like pre-release kind of beta versions. So don't take my word for it. It's definitely something that I would go check out in a store if you get the opportunity. Do keep in mind that this thing does start at $599. Versus the iPad now starts at $399, but it is Android, it is Google, and $599 is a price. $599 gets you an Intel Core processor, not something proprietary that you don't really know stuff about. It gives you a good amount of memory. It gives you storage, and I don't know if it has expandable storage, but it does not have a headphone jack, but it does have USB-C. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
They also, of course, released a keyboard, just like Surface and iPad have available, and it is sold separately. It's $200. This does look like a really nice keyboard for adjusting. Like, you can really adjust the screen into just about any kind of angle. So it looks like they've really done some good work on that.
Yeah, and believe it or not, the Slate itself was probably one of the more interesting things I got from the press conference as well. I honestly do believe that it really is giving people what they've been asking for, or what the market has been lacking from an Android tablet. I don't think it's waterproof. But I don't think that's a thing that people are doing with tablets nowadays. I remember for a while all the tablets had to be waterproof, but I think people have started to accept, hey, I'm not going to be in a pool with my fucking tablet, or in the shower with it or something weird like that.
I do want to back up a little bit. Something that I remembered is we're referring to it as an Android tablet. Actually, this device runs Chrome OS.
Yep.
It runs Chrome OS, the same one that's on the laptops, but Chrome OS does, at least on the laptops, it does run Android apps.
Mm-hmm. And there's even been discussions of letting the tablets have the capability of dual booting Windows with it as well. So
it's got the hardware for it. I mean, it's an Intel Core processor. They're releasing M3s, i5s, or Celerons. So I mean, you're talking about low to mid range PC components there.
Exactly.
4, 8, or 16 gigabytes of memory, and that's memory, not storage. Keep that in mind. So 8 or 16 gigabytes is, perfect for a device like this. And then it's available by default in up to 256 gigabytes of storage. So, and then of course, like I said, there's the keyboard. They also have a pen. So it really looks like a great competitor to the Surface or to the iPad. Especially if you can expand the storage. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I was trying to find that myself. I feel like that was a thing, but obviously take that with a grain of salt until
Yeah,
verified.
I just have my notes here.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that was on there was the Google Home Hub,
Yeah.
which is the Google Home Hub looks really neat. I'm not sure, like me, because I'm a little bit more security conscious. I'm kind of like, I'm always a little apprehensive with these home control devices. My biggest issue with this device is, man, it would be a really good replacement for my clock radio, and it would be a really good replacement for my weather station. One's in the bedroom, one's in the living room. I don't know where I'd put it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's actually like a good problem, right? Like, if any device that you could honestly debate putting in multiple locations means it probably is a good device to have, because that means that you will get some use out of it. Because maybe you go, I don't like it as an alarm clock. Maybe I do want it as a weather station, or maybe you know what I mean. So having that flexibility is huge when it comes to a device that is essentially unknown, right? Like this hasn't existed before.
Yeah, and like right now at home, I have an iPad on like a mount that's kind of in the kitchen, and I also have like an Alexa, right? So I have two devices. This is basically those put together and does more.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, theoretically, but more importantly, it communicates together. So it does it gives you the screen, which works with the assistant, a little bit more so than you would normally get with, say, just Google Assistant or Siri or whatever. I would recommend that anybody who's interested in this, go check out the videos. It looks like a really neat little product.
Yeah. And
it's also not very expensive for what it is.
No.
It's like $150.
And for those of you who are worried, that Google's going to be watching you, they actively decided to not put a camera on this. So while it actually looks like it would be one of those really nice devices you could do video calls on, this particular device is not set up for that. So take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, I think that was really a privacy thing, because I think they're expecting folks to, maybe keep these things in their bedrooms, and if they accidentally set it up so that it automatically accepts calls from your kid, and suddenly it just automatically answers and there's naked grandma. Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I think they're trying to avoid here, but. It's not really. It's not meant for video conferencing, but there's so much stuff it does do.
Exactly, and I was just gonna add, this does actually have a physical button to disable the microphone as well. So for those even who are like, I don't want Google tracking me, which let's be honest, they're gonna track you one way or another anyway. They won't do it from an audio standpoint, because you actually have control over that as well, which is.
And from a security perspective, as an IT professional, I have to say that's super important, because one of the big fears, and we don't really know, you don't know, if I'm not actively using like Alexa or whatever, I have a couple devices, but mostly it's kind of just toys. But in general, I try to keep them like not connected, because there have been situations or there have been stories about them listening, like hearing, like listening to what you say, and who knows what happens with that, and then of course the stories about them like Alexa coming alive in the middle of the night and saying things, and it's like super creepy.
I've had that happen.
Oh man,
it's creepy as shit.
But yeah, I mean, if you can turn off the microphone, use it for its functionality, but turn off the microphone unless you're actively using it. That's a lot better option than the one that I use, which is to unplug the entire device, which misses the point.
Exactly. So, I'm with you. I think it's a pretty interesting device. I don't think it works in my household, but that's just because of how we operate. So, but I could see it working for a bunch of other people. The tablet was the more interesting thing for me, because my girlfriend still has the Nexus 10 tablet. So this was the flagship tablet that came out when they first started doing the Nexus shit, you know?
Yeah, I still have a Nexus 7.
Yeah, and it's finally gotten to a point where it is basically unusable. Like we tried to play drop mix with it, and like we did an actual drop mix, and it spun so slowly that you could like see it, and it was painful. I was like, okay, yeah, it's time to put this bad boy out to pasture,
Oh,
which is sad. But yeah, again, this is something that the market has needed. This isn't a rehash, right? Which is what people don't like. This is actually
yeah.
them thinking of an innovative way to do something differently to fill a niche. But the thing about Google's events, there are two parts. There's a hardware side, and then there's a software side. And the software side is actually where I got the most excited, because as someone who owns a Pixel 2, a lot of the features that came out are features I'm gonna get. So I'm just gonna rattle through them off real quick, and then we'll just go on from there. But first thing I'm excited for is the night sight mode. Google has a chip dedicated to nothing but photography in their phones, in the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 3. And because of that, they can use different algorithms to help process images better. With night sight mode, what this is going to do is allow you to take scenes that generally would be too dark and would require a flash, and make it so that is completely unnecessary. And I will say, since I've gotten my Pixel and technically the Pixel 2 as well, I have yet to use the camera flash on my phone. I don't use it. I actually use it more for a flashlight than flash photography.
Yeah, night sight sounds really neat. I mean, basically, without having to use a flash, it's one of those things where it's like, think about if anybody was into photography, back when we were just, when we were using SLRs and 35 millimeter, and you had to figure out your exposures, and you had to figure out your film types, and you had to figure out your f-stops and all that kind of stuff. Night sight just basically like figures that out for dark situations.
Yeah.
It's just basically like it figures out the proper exposure, fills in the blanks, and bam, you get a good nighttime picture.
And my favorite part is for the presentation, they showed a side by side of the Pixel 3 versus the iPhone XS, which is the new iPhone, and it literally is a difference between night and day. So
yeah.
I'm very excited about that. Duplex. So some of you may remember us talking about the Google Duplex program before. Basically, this is where Google's AI takes over. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, what the AI will do is it will talk to humans in a human way, so that you don't have to.
Oh, yeah, this one is so cool.
So when we first heard about it, Google spoke of it as though it would allow you to use the service to say schedule appointments. So let's say you say, "Hey Google, schedule me a haircut appointment between 1 and 2 on Friday." What it will do? Oh God, no, I'm not talking to you, Google. Go to sleep. I should have did that. And hopefully I didn't kick off your Google. I apologize if I did. But
Nope.
It would then call the barbershop and say, "Hey, I'm setting an appointment up for a client of mine, and do you have it?" And then it would basically go through that. What they're going to be introducing sooner, though, because obviously it's going to take a lot of work to make sure that's ready to come to market. They are actually going to be doing the opposite. They're going to allow you to use it as a call screening feature. And this is what I'm most excited about. So one thing and this is something we've also discussed on the show, is getting a bunch of robocalls. And it's very annoying and it's very time consuming. I'm not kidding when I say this. Just today alone, I received, let me go ahead and look. I want to make sure I'm not lying out of my ass. Yeah, I received 5 robocalls. and I block it, and it normally goes to spam, and like Google has a feature where you can mark it as spam and it won't even ring your phone. But the fact of the matter is all they do is change the number, and then it comes in new, and then you're like, do I know that number, So it's just really annoying. But this feature will literally talk to the person calling you if you don't know the number. Like let's say it rings and I look at it and I go, I don't know this. I can press a button. Google will kick duplex in. The AI will talk to the person, and literally as the person is talking, it will show in text what they're saying, so you can decide if you want to answer or not. That is one of the things I'm the most excited for, because goddamn, it will just it's gonna make things so much easier for me. But yeah, it's those are sort of the things I'm ready for. I'm ready and excited for. And the thing I like about Google is a lot of times I hear people with iPhones discuss like, oh man, I can't get that feature because my phone isn't compatible or it doesn't use it or whatever. And like Google makes sure that, yeah, they're going to introduce some features that maybe you need a new phone for, or maybe you just need a new phone to get them first. But more often than not, they have, because they are working on things from, yes, a hardware side, but also a software side, your phone may just work with it. Like my girlfriend is using my old Pixel XL, and she's going to be able to use this feature, where it wasn't that long ago where if you said, oh, your phone's 2 years old, there's no way it's going to use be able to use the newest features on the new phone. And that's what I like about having a Pixel, is that I don't feel that FOMO and desire to purchase a new phone because I'm missing that one feature. Now, there are some hardware features that the new phone has that my phone doesn't. What part of the reason they have the notch is they have 2 lenses on it. One is a traditional lens and one is a super wide lens, so that you can take, better group selfies. And as someone who's has the longest arms in the group and is generally responsible for doing selfies, I think that is a very necessary feature. But again, the fact that I'm just missing that one thing, but my phone isn't useless, it kind of means a lot to me. So yeah, very excited. A lot of those features don't have timetables yet, but I'd imagine within the next month or two, we should see them start to roll out. So if you got a Pixel, congratulations, you won. And if you don't, well, good luck with you, and hopefully you get something. Because I will say this, a lot of times when Google does stuff like that, the other companies in Android universe figure out a way to implement it, and maybe in a little bit different way. But, again, I'd rather it be out there for everybody, because that means it can improve that much more. So yeah, that's it. I think we covered all our topics, unless you got anything you want to add.
No, I think that's about it. And also, just to add a little bit onto the software thing, the features that Marvin mentioned are not the only ones. There's some other really neat ones. So go out there and take a look at some of the features of this phone if you're at all interested in it, or looking for a phone upgrade in the near future, and you are not in the Apple camp. This is probably the best you can do. Well, it's not probably. It is the best you can do. Straight up.
Yeah. And I there are tons of videos on YouTube where people do like a shortened version of the press conference. I'll look at them and see what the best one is, and I'll try to post a link on the Twitter page as to which one I think is the most helpful, so that way you don't have to. But if you're so inclined, feel free to do so. It really is worth checking out. But yeah, so as always, thank you all for joining us this week. Mark, as I mentioned before, I appreciate you being on here.
Absolutely. Anytime. I love talking to you guys. And to you, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I was hoping I was included. So we'll wrap up here. Instagram, Twitter, @that1pod. Email, pod@gmail.com. Go to the show page, shows.pippa.io/that1podcast. And Mark, go ahead and do your thing.
Twitch.tv/Tycoonatic. And I'll try to make a little time to do a little chill streaming this week.
Nice. So, everybody, thank you again for listening. Have a good weekend. Hopefully I get this up before the weekend's over. But if I don't, regardless, take care of yourselves. And as always, be nice to one another.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.